Hello, Jeremy Hadler viewers. My name is Zach, owner, founder, all the above of BSC Cards. You can find us at BSC Cards on Instagram. What we're all about is a sports card hobby page showing off my personal collection of Cleveland Browns and other favorite players like GOAT Series legend Ray Guy. And on top of that, do some story sales pretty often to help get other collectors out there rare, unique pieces for their own enjoyment. I really have been in this hobby almost a decade now, put in that extra time to help find cool, rare pieces for all 32 NFL team fans to be able to enjoy. You can also follow us to get updated on when we'll be at a show or an event in the Eastern Pennsylvania or New Jersey area, and hope to see y'all there. Enjoy the video coming up, and peace.
Hello, folks. Welcome to Jeremy Hadler's YouTube channel. I'm your host, Jeremy Hadler, and welcome to episode 5 of season 3 of the GOAT series, where we've talked about before who's the best player in each franchise history. That's how we've done it through season 1 and season 2. If you've not already checked that out, please go do so. We're in season 3 here, episode 3, and we have our third guest here coming on, and this is Mr. Anthony Candelaria, big Eagles fan here, folks.
Hello, Jeremy. Hello, Internet. It's good to be here today. Looking forward to talking about some 2000s football.
Absolutely. And this is the era that Anthony knows a bit more since he grew up in this era more than I did. I was just born in this era. He knows a little bit more of the players. That's why I bring our experts for each era in here is what we always like to do for our guests. And the criteria that we are going to look for, and just make it simple, unlike the other GOAT series seasons we've done, is basically how much of an impact they made in the eras, basically of how we're going to put it and how they played it, to make it very simple for everybody. But we're going to go through, of course, from offense, defense, and special teams. We're going to start our quarterback first. I will go just to knock it out of the ballpark. And I did not put him on our last episode in the 2010 video here. But this one, I think there's a bit more in this era. And that is Tom Brady. I think you can't say anything about him, basically, of like most accomplished quarterback, possibly the human, possibly. And what he did, I mean, it was ridiculous. I mean, the amount of like passing yards, the amount of points he put up a game, and the dynasty he built with Belichick is insane to me. And won so many Super Bowls. The achievements is what I really think about Tom Brady. And that's all you need to say about Brady is the GOAT, as some people say. So just make that short and sweet of Tom Brady. But Anthony, you go, since we don't like Tom Brady here.
Well, that's certainly well put. It is hard to argue against Tom Brady. You know, people call him the GOAT for a reason. He's definitely one of the most iconic athletes of 2000s, up there with the likes of LeBron James and Derek Jeter. So definitely an icon of our childhoods for sure. I'm going to go in a little bit a different direction for this pick. I'm actually going to go with Tom Brady's arch rival in this era, Mr. Peyton Manning. I believe the 1998 Heisman winner before going to the NFL with the Indianapolis Colts. He was a many-time Pro Bowler and won the Super Bowl in 2006. He was the biggest rival of Tom Brady. I know this was in the 2010s, but he would eventually set the record for most touchdowns in a season during his first season in Denver. He did more with less. You know, he didn't have Bill Belichick. He didn't have the legendary Patriots defense at that time, but he really did carry the Indianapolis Colts for a while. Throughout my childhood, he was the symbol of I would say Midwestern NFL football, and for that reason, I would say that Peyton Manning is my GOAT.
Hey, that's a good pick, Anthony. I like Peyton Manning a lot. I don't know why as a kid I just hated him. I think it was because it was like the old veterans. It was just like, wasn't a fan of Kobe, wasn't a fan of Peyton. I was just like, these old guys, get them out of here. We need the younger guys in here. So, and to move into running back here, before I kick it off to Anthony real quick, I'd like to give a shout out here to the best gas station place in the world is Wawa. And this is to give a quick shout is by stay active, by going to Wawa. Go get your meal. Saquon Barkley, as I'm recording this episode, now has an official sub. So if you're in Philadelphia, go get that sub. Subs are the best at Wawa, folks.
Absolutely, I agree. Wawa is a tremendous establishment. There's 2 blocks from my house. They have gotten many hundreds of dollars from me over the years. So thank you, Wawa, for feeding us well. So for my running back pick, I'm going to go with actually Shaun Alexander. He was on the Seahawks for many years in the 2000s. He didn't have the longest peak, so he doesn't have super flashy career numbers, but he was the 2005 NFL MVP after rushing for over 1,800 yards and 27 touchdowns. He was also the Madden 07 cover athlete. That was the second Madden game I had. That was on the Wii. That was the only Madden game I ever had on the Wii. I remember you had to like wave the Wiimote to throw the ball. But yeah, Sean Alexander was definitely one of the most underrated players of the 2000s, and for that reason, he is my running back goat of this era.
Good pick. That's a pretty good pick. I want to go for another guy that watching highlights and not growing the era, but just watching highlights. He set the record for most rushing TDs in a season, and that is LaDainian Tomlinson. LT. Some people always think of Lawrence here. This is the other guy I always think of when you think of LT, the lightning bolt guy. He helped out with the Chargers so much, and he did play for the Jets later in his career as well. He was fast like Barry Sanders. I mean, he just had the speed is what I always think about LaDainian Tomlinson. Setting the most rushing touchdowns this season is incredible, is unheard of in the NFL today. He is one of the guys I think that sets the precedent mark of what a running back should be. And LaDainian Tomlinson did that for me, in my opinion. I think he was the most dominant guy. They couldn't stop him. The defenses couldn't stop him. They just feared him too much.
That's a definitely very good pick. I don't have that many memories. I wasn't watching a lot of West Coast football at this time, to be honest. But yeah, he was an electrifying player for the Chargers, no pun intended. Yeah, he scored a lot. Definitely a very formidable offense, thanks in large part to LT.
Absolutely. Let's kick it to wide receiver here. First pick, both agreed that this is just like a gimme, and that's Randy Moss. We both agreed on. All I got to say before I give it to Anthony, because I like to give Anthony's opinion more on this one because I don't like this guy because he hurt my team a lot, is Randy Moss. Don't get Moss. That's the simplest way if you want to describe Randy Moss is don't get Moss. Anthony, what you got him?
Encapsulates the spirit of Randy Moss. He was such a dominant athlete, real freak of nature, real fascinating college career. Went to several different schools. You know, we don't have time to get into all that, but definitely a very electrifying player. His 2007 season, I believe the first with the Patriots, he had 23 receiving touchdowns, which is still an NFL record to this day. Such a dynamic player. And yeah, he played a long time, bounced around a good bit. And yeah, I definitely is synonymous with the best wide receivers of this era. Who's your next wide receiver, Jeremy?
My next wide receiver, I'm going to go for Colts, like you mentioned with Peyton Manning. I'm going to go with Marvin Harrison, the father of Marvin Harrison Jr. To me, is like I don't think he gets much credit for what the Colts did, what he was a part of with that team. I mean, yes, he's in the Hall of Fame, but I don't think he gets much as credit as like some of the other players in that era and some of like the positions he did. I mean, what describe his game, for example, he had exceptional route running, same thing for his son. The speed in the hands, exceptional. It was like absolutely great. And this allowed him to be one of the best. He earned a Super Bowl in that process and 8 Pro Bowls. I mean, you can't get better than that, especially in that era. 8 Pro Bowls, ridiculous to me. And I think Martin Harrison definitely deserves a bit more credit, in my opinion here. But Anthony, you go with yours now.
Oh, yeah, no, I certainly do agree. 8 Pro Bowls is outstanding, especially for a crowded position like wide receiver, where had all sorts of excellent, talented players during that time. I'm actually going to go with a teammate of his and go with Reggie Wayne. Reggie Wayne kind of reached his peak a little bit after his top weapon in the late 2000s, 08, 09, and he stayed with the Colts for a while and bridged the gap into the Andrew Luck era in the early 2010s. He was incredibly consistent, great combination of size and speed. Also, I think had a little bit of an underappreciated his career. And I do wonder if maybe that's just something about being on the Colts. I don't know, maybe being on a smaller market, maybe being second fiddle to the Patriots on the playoff games. I don't know exactly, but I think both those players, you're right, deserve more appreciation for all they accomplished. And I think we have one more wide receiver pick each, Jeremy.
When you were talking about entertainment earlier, Anthony, this guy is absolutely entertainment. He was before what Antonio Brown was to this day. And that's Terrell Owens. We have seen Terrell Owens make his mark in the media so much with the Eagles, with the Cowboys, with the 49ers. He's a head case. Head case is the best way to describe because you see him not trying at the ball or him not getting what he wants, like especially when that, and you can talk about more, Anthony, about Dominic Nab and everything. That relationship was great at the start, and then it did not want to stay together. It did not want to stay. And that was the thing. He ruffled feathers, as you like to mention before, like with Randy Moss. Like he was the definition of like his dances to tick off some opposing teams. I mean, he had his way. I mean, a lot of his dances made at Fortnite, so I guess that was a huge accomplishment with like the popcorn, the stars. What I always forget when he got literally decked by a cowboy
Oh
player.
gosh, yeah.
I remember that one. But the most important thing I will say about Terrell Owens is you give him the ball, he's going to win for you. He's going to absolutely win the game for you, whether you need like a first down, you need to get the ball. He was the demanding diva, as I would like to mention, but he backed it up. He backed it up is what I can say. That's the one good thing about him. And he didn't make the Hall of Fame for a lot of years, and he made his own Hall of Fame jacket and didn't even go to the Canton Hall of Fame when he did get inducted. So
True. Yeah, it's a very good point about Tio's Hall of Fame introduction there. That definitely encapsulates it well. Yeah, Terrell Owens was an absolutely brilliant, crazy person, I think is a good way to describe it. In a lot of ways, he was kind of ahead of his time. You're right, with all the dances and the viral moments, but really before there was social media in this time. Makes me wonder, what if he had a Twitter account in like 2003 or 2004? Oh my goodness, that would be absolutely bonkers. But yeah, definitely. Yeah, I remember he was on the Eagles in that 2004 season you were talking about. That was my first year following the NFL in 2004. So he was one of my earliest NFL memories, watching him. Played for the Eagles and subsequently going to Dallas afterwards and becoming just number one enemy for a little second grade Anthony. But for my last wide receiver pick, I'm going to go with another, I feel like, very underappreciated player. That is none other than Steve Smith. No, I'm not talking about Stan Smith, sung from American Dad. I'm talking about the wide receiver for the Panthers for many years, Steve Smith. He won the 2005 Triple Crown, leading the NFL in receptions, yards, and touchdowns. And he did this all at just a relatively small stature, 5'9". So really cool that he was able to accomplish that feat and play for so many years. And I believe is probably on the Mount Rushmore of Carolina Panthers players today. It's a really underappreciated player as well, who always have happy memories of seeing him play.
I mean, he's one of the few players that's done the Triple Crown, Anthony. I mean, the last guy we could think of is Cooper Kupp, and that was like a couple years ago. But like Steve Smith, he was the guy before Cooper Kupp, and it was ridiculous how he still accomplished that. And I said it in the GOAT series, like he's the greatest Panther player of all time, in my opinion here, because of what he accomplished with the Panthers through the struggles, the early struggles, towards like when they went to the Super Bowl the one year and they had a lot of success.
I know I went to the University of South Carolina, and there were a lot of Panthers fans I knew, and all of them had just nothing but the best things to say about Steve Smith. Steve Smith jerseys were pretty common occurrences, common sighting in South Carolina, along with Cam Newton, and even the rare Jake Delhomme jersey you would see out in the wild sometimes. But yeah, that was definitely a common sight. So he's definitely still well remembered in the Carolinas, but less so elsewhere. But I think that wraps up the wide receiver pick. So let's move on to tight ends.
Tight ends, Anthony, we're going to start off for you since we just finished with Steve Smith.
For my pick, I went with Antonio Gates. He was the number one pass catcher for Phil Rivers during those 2000 Chargers teams with LaDainian Tomlinson that we were talking about earlier. He had 83 touchdowns by the end of the decade, electrifying absolute beast in the end zone. He was a former basketball player, and he was recently inducted into the Hall of Fame as the first ever NFL Hall of Famer to never play college football. So just a really fantastic talent.
And the interesting fact, folks, about Antonio Gates is, if you ever watched Cartoon Network as a kid, guys, if you ever heard this show, Destroy, Build, Destroy, he made a cameo in it, and he led a team to win for like 15-year-old kids or whatever it was who were in high school to win them the contest. So I like to give a shout out to him on that. He did appear on Cartoon Network for an episode and won a contest. So
that's amazing. I never knew that. Wow.
I'd like to give a shout out to Antonio Gates for leading a team for the Engineers.
Who's your pick?
So I also like to go with, like you mentioned, like I'm a basketball player. I'm going with Tony Gonzalez. Tony Gonzalez here, folks. Love his intro on Sunday Night Football. Is my funniest thing about him. He also, Anthony, he went to Cal. He played basketball for most of his life, and he didn't start playing football until like early in his high school career. And he didn't start it out. I mean, he was trying to go to play basketball. He wanted to be a professional basketball player. But he became a football player because that's what he had more success with and did a lot better job at it. He was more athletic than I would say, like, if Antonio Gates. Some of, like, even Travis Kelce, to know what we know about him to this day. Tony Gonzalez was unstoppable, and he did represent the true modern of what you're seeing, like George Kittle, Travis Kelce. You're seeing, like, how these modern tight ends are doing right now. Tony Gonzalez did that a lot. And you need him to get that touchdown. Like, he's a red zone target guy. Tony Gonzalez, to me, is the number one guy I have on my list. All right, so we went through the main positions on the offense, but now we're going to continue with the offense and hit the O-line here. I will start off, and then we're going to go back to Anthony here. So the way as we're going to do, and I've done the last couple of episodes and future episodes, is going to be from left tackle, left guard, left center, right guard, and right tackle. I'm going to give all my lists to make it easy for everybody. Let's start off here. Left tackle. I like this name a lot. Orlando Pace for me. I love the name of Orlando. And he has a good pace. I mean, you can't get better than the name than that. What stands out to me about him, he had 7 consecutive Pro Bowls and was All-Pro 5 times, but he was very good in the pass protection and the run game as well, and known for his pancake blocks by flattening the edge rushers with power and consistency. He did that numerous times and helped build the greatest show on turf, the Rams, so we know what they were back in the day with Marshall Faulk and Kurt Warner, all those guys. He helped the Rams get to and win Super Bowl. He did it, and that just stands out to me about him. So got to give Orlando Pace here credit there. And then my left guard here, this guy I think is a bit underrated. Now he's in the Hall of Fame, of course, but I think he's a little underrated for what he's done in his NFL career, and that is Steve Hutchinson. Steve Hutchinson, known for his toughness, his intelligence, known again for his relentless effort, and he just had powerful run blocking, and he was just able to protect the quarterbacks, and he helped running backs have great seasons like Anthony was mentioning about Sean Alexander. Steve helped out very well in that. Also with Adrian Peterson too. Now I know that's later, that was more 2010, but still, that just shows you how good he was helping with Adrian Peterson and Sean Alexander in that process. So I think Steve Hutchinson, my left guard, that's get praised there. And then a guy I think is really, really underrated that does not get talked about a lot is Kevin Wawa as my center. Known for his mobility, durability, he played so much. He was consistent. He was very close, I believe, to having the most consecutive starts as an offensive line, I'm pretty sure. But he understood the way of how to block with angles and try to neutralize those fast linebackers and to also open up lanes in the running game and also keep the bull rush defenders off of the quarterback. Now, he had the Jets quarterbacks. Those were not great quarterbacks, guys. So that just shows you how Kevin was good, very good for that Jets O-line when they're usually terrible. So got to give appreciation to Kevin there. My right guard is Alan Faneca, known for his elite blocking, versatility, his intelligence, very intelligent on the field. And what defines about his game is his powerful run blocking. He had the technique of everything you need to do, and is excellent at that. He was also very disciplined by not giving up too many flags, not getting flagged on, and his leadership. He helped out the team, especially in Pittsburgh. He helped them out and win a couple Super Bowls and go far in the playoffs and win a couple championships, folks. So, and then to wrap it up, my right tackle, as I'm still finishing with my offense line, then we're going to give it to Anthony here. Willie Rolfe as my right tackle. When I went to the Super Bowl, first guy I saw there when they're hanging up the numbers or hanging up the names, Willie Rolfe was the first guy I saw up there.
Oh, wow.
And
I didn't know that.
he had dominant blocking, exceptional athleticism, and was a key figure in helping the Saints win their first playoff win. And that was when Hurricane Katrina happened, folks, in that season. And then he also helped the Chiefs, when he was a part of them, lead the NFL in points and total yards in multiple seasons.
That's a great offensive line, Jeremy. I don't think many people are going to argue with those. I have some different names that I wanted to highlight, though. Starting with left tackle, I'm going with Jonathan Ogden. He was the left tackle for the Baltimore Ravens throughout the 2000s, from the 2000s Super Bowl team through the early Flacco years. He was very consistent, an 11-time Pro Bowler, and he won a Super Bowl. He was huge. He was 6'9", just wow. really a massive force for those great Ravens teams. For left guard, Steve Hutchinson, not going to spend too much time on it. Same thing what Jeremy said. He was between Sean Alexander and blocking for Adrian Peterson, probably one of the best run blocking guards we've ever seen. For center, I'm going to go with Jeff Saturday. He was the center for Peyton Manning and the Colts. We've already mentioned a few times already in this video. He was one of the most cerebral minds. I remember he would actually audible plays with Peyton, which if you watch back on some YouTube videos, there are some pretty funny moments of them arguing on the sidelines when they were mic'd up. Really, really smart guy. He briefly coached the Colts as the interim coach. Good. Not super successful there, I must say, but excellent personality. A little bit undersized too. He was only like 6'1" or 6'2", under 300 pounds, which is a little bit unheard of in today's game for the big guys up front. But yeah, Jeff Saturday's awesome. awesome. For right guard, I'm going with Will Shields, again on the Chiefs. Good amount of Chiefs players on this list for a team that did not have too much playoff success era. That would have to come later for them. But yeah, he was a 12-time Pro Bowler, and he started for 14 straight seasons, didn't miss a game. He was the Iron Man of this era for the offensive line. Really special player. And then for right tackle, I'm going with a little bit of a homer choice. He was the Philadelphia Eagles right tackle in the 2000s before Lane Johnson took the spot over and became one of the greatest right tackles of all time. Before him, there was Jon Runyan. He had 192 starts with the Eagles throughout the Andy Reid era, blocking for McNabb. He was excellent. He was one of the first offensive linemen I remember growing up as a kid, watching Eagles games on TV. He was there playing at my first ever game at the Link. After his NFL career over, he was actually a congressman in New Jersey, or representing New Jersey in D.C. He served 2 terms, so he spent 4 years in the Capitol building. So this is a guy who has blocked all sorts of things. He's protected quarterbacks. He's protected legislation, just an overall guy who has always been a real team player and a gamer. So yeah, objectively, probably not the GOAT, but he's my GOAT. Jon Runyan, you're the man.
That's awesome. No, I love the list here of what you got with Ogden. That was a tough one for me. I was going back and forth on that.
So that concludes the offense now. Now we can turn it over to the defense with defensive tackles. So I picked a guy whose career kind of spanned the 2000s and the 2010s. I'm going with good old Vince Wilfork. He was such a key piece of the New England defensive front. He was a 2-time Super Bowl champion, 5-time Pro Bowler. Definitely felt like the heart and soul of the Patriots D-line growing up, watching him play. There are some pretty incredible moments of him deflecting passes, and there's been some memes of the Air Wilfork, which I love so much with the big belly up front. But no, Vince Wilfork was definitely very memorable, really fun player to watch, and yeah, definitely an important part of those Belichick Patriots.
For me, I want to go with a guy that I feared. If I was a quarterback, I feared this guy when he came to play, and that is Warren Sapp, characterized by his explosive power, his quickness, and his ability to change the momentum of a game with key forced fumbles and sacks. Brett Favre was not a fan of him because Warren Sapp got all over him, and Warren Sapp won a Super Bowl with the Bucs and was one of the main key pieces of why the Bucs won the Super Bowl. That has to get appreciated there for me. I mean, he's one of the most feared guys that I always thought of when you think of defensive tackles. He's that guy.
Sure, for sure. Warren Sapp was fantastic. He's also one of the few defensive players to have appeared on The Simpsons. So he has made it to Springfield. So pretty incredible for a defensive player to achieve that. Yeah, excellent Super Bowl winning player. Curious, Jeremy, when you think of Warren Sapp, do you think of him more as a Buccaneer or as a Raider?
I think of him as a Buccaneer. That's what I always think of him. Like, especially in his early days when I would just watch like highlight tapes or stuff. Like, I always thought of him in that aspect as a Buccaneer, though.
Makes sense. Yeah, it's probably the most iconic there.
We'll go outside linebacker here. I can start out with here, folks. With that one, not a fan of this team, but credit is due when you cannot. Like, this guy I respected more than Mr. Randy Moss in this one. I got to give credit to him, and that's Brian Urlacher.
Yeah.
Brian Urlacher is the reason why, in my opinion, of why the Bears won the Super Bowl, even though they lost, and thank you, Colts and Peyton Manning for that cause. But Brian Urlacher is the main reason why, and you couldn't stop him. He was one of the most legendary linebackers, most feared tackler, made his stops when you need him to do, and he was also good in pass coverage. I won't forget in the Super Bowl, the NFC Championship game 2010. Rodgers throws it, intercepted by Urlacher, and somehow Rodgers tackles him when he could have easily had a pick six, basically, and that would have won the Bears the game and sent them to the Super Bowl. But it didn't happen, so thank you, Rodgers, for that. But no, Brian Urlacher, I really loved his game, like especially how nitty-gritty he was, and he just went all about it. Really respect him for what he did, and he's just a phenomenal player. Urlacher, if Ray Lewis or Mike Singletary wasn't there, I think Brian Urlacher is definitely high. He's definitely high up there for me. One of the guys I think that also defines the era too, Anthony. I think he defines the 2000s, how you played on defense in that era.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I having watched him play throughout his career, throughout my childhood, definitely synonymous with defense. Like, if I were to close my eyes and think of, like, players playing defense in my childhood, it would probably be Urlacher that pops up. Just such an amazing combination of size and speed, And Bears definitely a team that has always been kind of a defensive first mentality, and he definitely represented that for sure. Hands down, probably the best, absolutely the best player to come out of University of New Mexico. So definitely the best Lobo to ever make in the NFL. Yeah, Brian Urlacher is fantastic. Can't disagree with that pick. But I actually have someone else I wanted to highlight, and that is James Harrison. He was on the Steelers for those Steeler teams in the late 2000s who made some big pushes. He was Pro Bowler in 07, 08, 09, which was kind of like the heart of my childhood NFL watching era. He was probably best known for the 100-yard interception pick six in the Super Bowl against the Cardinals. Definitely a legendary moment, one of the best defensive plays I've ever seen in the Super Bowl. I believe he also long snapped for the Steelers as well during that time. So super, super versatile player. And James Harrison is definitely another player I feel is synonymous with him.
I think the 100-yard, absolutely, like that stands out to me, and I believe that's the record, Anthony, if I'm correct, of like how long the longest interception touchdown, I believe, in Super Bowl history, if I'm correct on that.
Yeah, that's true. Absolutely. And then moving on over to defensive ends, I'm going with Michael Strahan. Before he was yapping it up with Howie Long and Kurt Menefee and the Fox Sports guys on Sunday mornings, he was an absolute beast for the on the Giants. Absolutely terrorized the Eagles for many years. Definitely a very intimidating presence. He had the single season sack record with 22 and a half in 2001. He would just absolutely just carve up offenses. He was a 7-time Pro Bowler, and he was a little bit ahead of his time as a defensive celebrity. Before there were players like J.J. Watt or say the Bosas or players on the Ravens. Michael Strahan was a guy who would appear on talk shows and was kind of like the face of defense for a period of time. I think he was really good, and I think also maybe being in the New York market helped out with that some as well. But yeah, Michael Strahan, very iconic player of the era, and just an absolute force to be reckoned with.
I will say, though, for his single sack record, folks, it is not, I believe, by Mark Gastineau, the former New York Jets defensive end. He had the record at the time until that happened, and he criticized Favre for purposely giving up the record by kneeling down, taking the sack, is what a lot of people say. It wasn't truly a sack for Michael Strahan, but, I mean, he did it, and Mark Gastineau wants his record still to this day, probably not getting the Hall of Fame, and he'll have a gripe about that. So if you ever watched the Brett Favre documentary, That Happened, folks, the Jets documentary about that, so you can check that out on ESPN. But no, I mean, Michael Strahan, I loved the guy. I mean, I hated watching him play against my team. I mean, he just beat us so much. I couldn't stand. Yeah. So, I mean, you got to respect it to it. I mean, if I liked him as a player when he didn't face me. I loved watching him when he didn't face me, but when he did, that's when I couldn't stand him a bit. But no, got to give appreciation to him there. And then he's also on Good Morning America too, folks.
That is true. Yeah, so the dude is an absolute darling on television. Seems like an incredibly nice guy. And also, I also had a little bit of a personal attachment to him as well. Growing up, I had a little bit of a speech impediment, not unlike Strahan. So to see him be so successful and so confident on TV with the slight less that he had as someone who had a stutter growing up is definitely an inspiration for me. So yeah, Michael Strahan will always have a special place for me and someone I always smile when I think about watching him play growing up.
That's awesome. For me, I want to go with a different player because I know with Strahan, that's absolutely a great accomplishment, everything he did. One guy I want to give appreciation here. I'm going to kick it back to the Colts defense here. Dwight Freeney here. What stands out to you about him, Anthony, and to the folks here watching this? His signature spin move. He spins so much to get after that quarterback and against the O-lineman. Spin. Not like with Reggie White, of course, when he was with the Eagles and the Packers, but he would spin. And he had elite pass rushing ability, able to be so quick, and he had that powerful move to allow him to be so consistent to beat that offensive lineman and disrupt offenses day in, day out, every single time. And he is, I believe he's top 10 in the all-time sack record, but he was phenomenal and definitely one of the main reasons why the Colts got to the Super Bowl and won a Super Bowl and had many playoff long runs was because of Dwight Freeney from that defense.
That's such a good point. He really was a big player for those teams. And yeah, once again, an ever Colts player who I feel like is a little bit underappreciated today. I'm noticing a bit of a trend there. Yeah, he was awesome. Dwight Freeney is the man. And then I think we'll move on to safeties, right?
Yes. All right, I'll take it away here. This guy, Anthony, when I first got into football, when I first played Madden, for example, this guy was the first guy I think of for Madden.
Really?
I think of him because of what his long hair. His long hair is what reminds me of it, and I always remember the intro to Madden was he was one of the main guys when they're doing like when you're waiting 5 seconds or 30 seconds to get the game loaded and everything. He was in the highlight reel, so that was appreciation to him. And that is Troy Polamalu, the Tasmanian Devil, the nickname. Again, the long hair is what I always think of Troy Polamalu. Clay Matthews, he had competition there, but Troy, he had it, the long hair. He had it. He played 12 seasons with the Steelers, 2-time Super Bowl champion, 4 first-team All-Pro, 2 second-team All-Pro, 8-time Pro Bowler, and 1-time Defensive Player of the Year. Very close to not winning that award. That was also given to Clay Matthews, and that was the year the Packers won the Super Bowl. So worked it all stuff out there. But no, Troy Polamalu, when I think I was first getting the football here, and I'm thinking of the Steelers fans, they would talk about this guy so much. They think that has to get appreciated out here to me is Troy Polamalu a lot.
Absolutely. I also picked Troy Polamalu. Yeah, he was absolutely just such an iconic player on those Steelers teams, on those Steeler defenses. As someone who also grew up in Pennsylvania, not Steelers country, but still Pennsylvania, he was definitely absolutely everywhere in those Head and Shoulders commercials, like Clay Matthews. He was so big. He was one of the few defensive players that my mom could pick out when watching football games. She wasn't a huge fan at the time of the game, but she knew who Troy Polamalu is. I think everybody did. And yeah, between just the nickname of Tasmanian Devil and the hair, just how explosive he was, he almost felt more like a pro wrestler than he did a football player. Yeah. He was just very larger in life. And then while we're talking about safeties over on the free safety side of things, I'm going to talk about my man, Eagle legend, Brian Dawkins. That's right, Weapon X, baby. 7-time Super Bowler, one of the hardest hitters of his era, and I would say one of the best free-running safeties I've ever seen. The dude would absolutely fly, and as we learned from middle school or maybe high school physics class, force equals mass times acceleration. I don't think anybody took that to heart quite like Brian Dawkins did, because he was so fast and so strong. I think he had a quote to something to the effect of, "I want offensive players to see God when they see me," basically implying that he was going to absolutely tear them apart, which is just so perfect for the Philadelphia Eagles ethos. Big player in the 2004 playoff run. Came up a little bit short against Tom Brady and the Patriots, but hey, if that was the case for a lot of NFC teams during those times.
When I think of Eagles players, when I did my Eagles episode about who the greatest player of all time was, it was Reggie White for me. But when I think of what embodies, what represents the Philadelphia Eagles to me, how Allen Iverson represents the Philadelphia 76ers and Dr. J represents the Sixers, Brian Dawkins brought that. He brought that atmosphere. He brought that to the fans to really represent what a true Philadelphia Eagle was. Technically he does have a Super Bowl, but wasn't when he was a player. It was when he was with the Nick Foles team. He really represented what a true safety was, and I always loved his hard hitting. I remember someone told me once about how he set the tone in that Eagles Falcons playoff game one time where I believe it was Rodney White, and he catches the ball from the Falcons, and Brian Dawkins absolutely slams him right to the ground to set the tone for the game, and the Eagles won that game. But Brian Dawkins is that guy, the Weapon X. X going to give it to you. Definitely one of the hardest hitters in that era and of all time in eras for safeties.
Yeah, definitely iconic. Lots of happy memories of him. He was as a kid, I always thought defense was really boring, but he was somebody that made it exciting. So I'll always be grateful for him for that.
No, definitely. I have to get to my last safety here for free safety. This one I think of instantly when I think of safeties, and that is Ed Reed. I couldn't leave him off here. Now, I think, in my opinion here, Anthony, I think he's more of a hard hitter than Brian Dawkins to me. He's a ball hawk. He had a 3-time interceptions leader, 9 Pro Bowls, 3 second-team All-Pro, 5 first-team All-Pro, 1 Defensive Player of the Year one time, and 1 Super Bowl champion one time. But he was the hardest hitter I think of when you think of like even like with linebackers like with Brian Urlacher or Michael Strahan, all those guys. I think Ed Reed was the hardest hitting safety imaginable to me and to me personally. So Ed Reed has to get appreciation here, and I will give a little jab to Anthony because he's an Eagles fan here. With Ed Reed was when he intercepted the ball from his own end zone basically and took it all the way back to the house against the Eagles to set the record for the longest interception I believe, to this day. So you gotta say that. But no, Ed Reed, phenomenal player. He is somebody, if I want my Madden team or if I'm building a team, I want somebody like Ed Reed to be a part of my defense to really help set the tone and get the interceptions and make plays for me.
Yeah, that's a great pick. Certainly can't argue with that. Yeah, probably one of the greatest ball hawks of all time.
Yes.
And one of the best instincts I've ever seen from a defensive player.
No, absolutely. All right, let's kick it over to middle linebacker here. So for me, this one, I'm going to go back to Madden here. I'm going to go with Madden, what was it? Madden 12 or Madden 13, I think it was. No, Madden 13, excuse me. Madden 13, I think. Of course, the cover was Calvin Johnson. But the intro, when you're waiting for like the game to set game to set up and everything, they do a little video of Ray Lewis in the locker room just being very emotional and being very motivational to people. And I think of that, like when I think of Ray Lewis here, the 2012 team, I think of him instantly. When I think of that Ravens and what I remember growing up my childhood was him. And I will never forget his iconic dance. I love it. It's my favorite dance. He made the game more fun, in my opinion, despite like all like the off-field stuff or how hard-hitting he was to knock players out. He's the greatest middle linebacker, in my opinion, of all time. Like, there's no debate about it to me personally. So,
yeah, definitely. Ray Lewis is also my pick for greatest middle linebacker. He was the Super Bowl 35 MVP, 7-time Pro Bowler. And speaking of Madden, he was the 2005 Madden cover athlete, which was a big deal at the time because that was the first year Madden had the hit stick, and he was the poster child of that, which goes to show just how synonymous he was with hard-hitting defense. The opening title screen, like when the game is loading, is actually him sacking Michael Vick, the overpowered quarterback and the 2004 Madden cover athlete. Yeah, super synonymous between the Madden connection and the end zone dance we're talking about. Kids absolutely love the guy. If you were a kid, growing up in the 2000s, like Jeremy and myself, and you watched football, you remember Ray Lewis, just how intimidating he was, an absolute beast playing middle linebacker, and yeah, very, very special defensive player there.
We'll kick it off to corners. I will go first, and then we'll kick it right back to Anthony here. Charles Woodson. And the one thing I always remember about Charles Woodson was his Super Bowl quote to my team in that huddle, in the locker room after they won the NFC Championship game against Chicago Bears. One heart, one mind, one goal, one purpose. Be one team. Win the Super Bowl. Now, when he was with the Raiders, he was very good with them. Now, he got hurt in the Super Bowl when he was with the Raiders, but he, in that era, to me, Anthony, he was great. He was absolutely great until he got cut and his free agent. He had off-field issues and he was getting like suspended, all that. When they came to the Packers, and he didn't ever want to come to the Packers. He never did. He said that quote by him. When he got there, that definitely rejuvenated his career and that helped him set up to being a Hall of Famer, helping him being on track to being a great player once again. And he absolutely did that. Now, the one crucial thing that I always vividly remember about him in a Raiders uniform, of course, is the tuck rule. He still argues to this day, and with Brady, they've had conversations about that because they were teammates in Michigan, Anthony. That was absolutely a fumble, even though the refs said it wasn't, even though it's stupid at the time it was, when it's clearly a fumble because he held on the ball, which he didn't. No, I think Charles Woodson has to get, especially my accolade, and he's one of my favorite football players of all time. And Charles Woodson was one of the most feared players, I will say, to Brady and Rodgers, too.
Oh, definitely. I also picked Charles Woodson. He was an absolutely shut down corner, and yeah, super inspirational and just a really great teammate. I believe he was the last defensive player to win the Heisman Award in 1997, which I know a lot of people consider to be the greatest Heisman race. That Heisman race also included other people on this list, like Peyton Manning and Randy Moss, and Ryan Leaf, who was one of the best of all time. One of the greatest Heisman races of all time in 97. He won the Heisman Award December 6th, 1997, which was 11 days before I was born. So he was on the top of the college world when I entered the world. So I guess there's a little bit of a connection there. But yeah, Charles Woodson, I would say was great on the Raiders. I would say really became a legend on the Packers. Yeah, Charles Woodson is a fantastic corner. My other pick for corner is a little bit of an unconventional option, a guy who kind of under the radar but deserves a little bit of appreciation, is Rondé Barber, the identical twin brother of Tiki Barber, the running back for the Giants. Rondé Barber on the Buccaneers was an All-Pro and was a big part of the 2002 Super Bowl champion team. A little bit like Steve Smith, he was a little bit undersized for the position, but was absolutely just so talented on the Buccaneers. I remember he gave the Eagles lots of troubles in the playoffs. He was a huge reason why the Buccaneers actually beat the Eagles in the 2003 NFC Championship game. And big part of why Tampa was able to hoist the Lombardi then. That team really was really built on defense with him and Warren Sapp. Rondé Barber, I think, is a little bit lost in the shuffle these days, but deserves respect as one of the greats. Who's your pick for the second cornerback?
All right, I want to make this short because I don't think there's much you said by his first name. That's all you need to know about him. That's Champ Bailey. Oh, yeah. Champ Bailey, known for his lockdown coverage, incredible ball skills, and his physicality is what really stands out to me. And again, he's a champ. He's a champ, and he's going out there to fight it all out there. And absolutely one of the best CBs from being in Washington, being in Denver. Always remember that about him. All right, let's kick it to special teams here, folks. I want to go with Anthony here.
I'm going with David Akers, number 2 for the Philadelphia Eagles. Another early memory of mine, watching him kick for the Birds. Eagles legend, led the NFL in points twice. Also had an absolutely epic troll job a few years ago with the NFL draft in Dallas. If you're an Eagles fan, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And yeah, David Akers, I know there is a much bigger, much more sexier name. I know, Jeremy, we'll get to in a second. But David Akers definitely deserves appreciation for being an Eagles legend. And then for punter, just keeping with special teams, I'm going with probably, I would say, the unanimous pick, Shane Lechler, an absolutely critical part of some pretty bad Raiders teams. Yes. They needed punts a lot, and boy, did he deliver some of a largest average yards per punt. I know Jeremy has some stats on that in a sec. Yeah, Shane was definitely a great player who was definitely made the most of on those Raiders.
The kicker part, I mean, that's a fun part. That's the only thing, when you mentioned about the troll in Dallas, Anthony, that's the only thing I ever knew about David Akers was literally just that. I'd never heard of him when he came on the stage. Still don't know much about him this day. I didn't even realize he was the kicker for them. That's all I remember about David Akers is just that roast is probably one of my favorite roasts I've ever seen anyone do. That's just my favorite roast there.
All right, Jeremy, let's hear your pick for kickers. I'm sure it's going to be the pick for most people who would be making a list like this.
All right, so this one had a better ice in his veins because he had ice in his veins, and he's a 4-time world champion. That's Adam Vinatieri. Mr. Adam Vinatieri, who has gone 3 first-team All-Pros, 3 Pro Bowls, 1-time NFL scoring leader, first player to ever be the deciding factor in 2 Super Bowl games. Ridiculous. He was clutch when you needed to be, and Adam Vinatieri did it throughout, in multiple years, so long he did it for. And it's one of the positions you can play the longest in compared to other positions. So I got to give appreciation to him. And then the punter, I'm going to go with Shane Lechler. I mean, he holds the NFL record for career punting average for nearly 2 decades. He averaged 47.6 yards per punt. Now, that is very good, but that's the only thing the Raiders had. And that besides like them going to the Super Bowl and everything against the Bucs, when the Bucs won everything, the Raiders pretty much had nothing else. The only great thing I will say about the Raiders, Anthony, in their entire franchise history is they're great at identifying special team players, punters and kickers. That's the one thing that sticks out to me about the Raiders is they are great at identifying special teams, but everything else, they are god-awful. They got Jamarcus Russell.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, between him and Sebastian Janikowski really anchoring their special teams. Yeah, they definitely got the special teams right. I will give that much about the Raiders. And yeah, Adam Vinatieri, one of the best to ever do it. He was actually such a good kicker. I remember growing up, he had an endorsement deal with Snickers. I remember commercials, Adam Nougateri, which is pretty special. The fact that a kicker could get a nationwide candy endorsement is pretty remarkable. I believe he's also the last player from the 90s to be active in the NFL. His career started in 1996, I believe. So before Jeremy and I were even born, and he played until I believe my freshman year of college. So he had an insanely long career, definitely an icon.
The final position, the most important position, return game. That is Devin Hester. I don't think it's questionable in this era at all of what he did. He had the touchdown in the Super Bowl. Again, he had the kickoff return for the opening kickoff of the Super Bowl against the Colts, but he was explosive, game-changing, iconic, and he's defined by his speed, agility, and vision. He definitely was a game changer, and he was a guy you feared a lot as a returner. So that is my pick. Anthony, did you have the same guy as me?
I did. I don't think there's much debate with Devin Hester. Yes, super explosive, and yeah, definitely made what is normally unremarkable and unglamorous position super exciting.
And this concludes the 2000s. We move on to the 1990s here.